What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with a brand new movie review, and today we'll be discussing the new psychological horror by the name of The Night House, which actually premiered back at Sundance back in 2020 and will be finally making its way to the big screen coming this Friday on August 20th. Now, I got the opportunity to check it out in theaters, and I'm really excited to let you all know what I thought about this horror film and if it's worth checking out all in this spoiler-free review. Before we break it all down, do me a favor and check me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you all can get the alert for when I drop new content. If you all enjoyed this spoiler-free review of The Night House, make sure to like and share the video. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate all the support. And in the comments below, let's talk about the movie. Let me know if you were excited for it, but more importantly, what did you think about this film? Let's talk about the narrative, the metaphors, the themes, the performances, the trickery of the cameras, what was real, what was fake, but also, were you disappointed? Were you misled by the trailer? And let's talk a little bit about, without getting to the spoilers in the comments, let's talk about that ending. Just let me know simply, were you a fan of the ending? And if you weren't a fan of the ending, and what did you kind of take away from the ending? Let's talk about it in the comments below. So for me personally, when I saw this trailer, I was already attached to it because I'm a big Rebecca Hall fan. I like the director for what he brings in this genre. And when it comes to psychological horrors, I'm a fan of horror, number one, but also psychological. The older I've gotten, the more you can mess with my head. It really kind of gets to me, especially story dealing with ghosts, sleeping, dreams, sleep paralysis. Things of that nature are something that goes right up my alley. So I was really excited for this film. So what did I think about it starting off my positives? Well, first and foremost, going back to what got me intrigued based on that trailer was seeing that David Bruckner was the director of this film, who I'm not going to lie, when it comes to the filmography, the movies I've seen of his, whether it be his small segment of VHS, which I thought was fine, and then his big feature debut kind of on Netflix being The Ritual, I wasn't a fan of the narrative and kind of how the film wrapped up, but I was blown away by the production of the film. And I can say the same about this film. When it comes to David Bruckner's movies, number one, he seems to have some type of really deep kind of a connection to dealing with death and grief, and very similar to The Ritual. And if you all have seen the trailer, read the synopsis, which I'm going to put in the description below, the story is pretty straightforward. You have Rebecca Hall Beth, who recently lost her husband due to him taking his own life, and the film kind of dives into who this man was, and maybe she didn't know who her husband was. So very kind of simple premise, but it has a lot of twists and turns within that premise. But going back to the production, David Bruckner does a fantastic job of creating tension, very creepy moments throughout this film. It's very atmospheric. I mean, the way he uses the lights, the color palettes, and also just in particularly his camera work. The camera work in this film is absolutely fantastic. When you think of films like most recently, it came out a couple years ago now, which is crazy to say, but I think of a film like The Invisible Man, the way that it was kind of the way the camera positioned itself. Is there something in front of the character? Is there something in the corner there? Is there something behind that character? The trickery done in this film is very well done, and I really want to applaud the cinematography. But like I said, the director of this film, David Bruckner, he does a fantastic job of playing with the trickery of the camera, with illusions, kind of tricking the audience, as well as our main character, Beth, to know if there's something in the room with her. I thought that was really fantastically done. But going back into what I just mentioned, Rebecca Hall's character, Beth, she was the absolute standout. She carried this film emotionally, as well as just going throughout her journey. Again, Beth just recently lost her husband of 14 years, someone that she thought she knew from top to bottom. She's been through ups and downs with, and for him to just take his life like that, she wants answers, right? And as she's kind of discovering, looking into his phone, looking into his computer, she finds out some stuff about her husband. So just going on that journey with her, and as she's discovering things and the emotion she brings to the character, the amount of levity I was not expecting in the comedy realm. This isn't a comedy by any means, but there was some moments where Beth's character was kind of on edge. So when people would ask her things or give her their condolences of her loss, she's like, the way she comes back at them and the way she kind of handles certain reveals, I thought was fantastically done. Again, Rebecca Hall, to me, has always been just like circling around, just having this big hit. You know, I've been following her since 2006, The Prestige, seeing her in The Town, seeing her in Iron Man 3, and just seeing her career continue to grow, even something most recently in Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm just a big fan of her, and I thought she was absolutely incredible in this movie and really enjoyed her journey. And then again, just taking away some of the psychological themes from this film. Again, being a big fan of horror, I love when films mess with your head. Is this real? Is this fake? when we dive into stories, and I'm a big Freddy Krueger fan, and Inception comes to mind, and movies that deal with what happens when you sleep, what happens, where do you go when you sleep, is it an out-of-body experience, do you just sleepwalk, things of that nature. This film kind of tackles those things, and within that psychological genre, it really kind of tackles it. Again, I'll be honest with you all, I saw this the other night, and my mind was racing, and you talk about sleep paralysis. I had a couple of times when I slept last night when I was just kind of like, is there something in the corner over there? So the film really does play with your mind in that sense, but also just going into our character's Beth, again, what was really real, what was a dream, what did she really find out? It really kind of messes with your head in that sense. So I really enjoy how they tackled that idea of really dive into the psychological aspects of this character who has recently lost someone pretty close to her. So those are some things that really stood out to me. But transitioning to my criticisms here, I will mention that the film, as she's uncovering the mysteries of who her husband really was, there's a couple twists in this movie. And I have to say, the first twist, I really, really hoped and I really wish the film would have kept that narrative, because it was really dark. As the film goes on, it gets darker and darker as she starts to figure out more about the situation at hand and learns about the secrets of her husband. But that first twist, man, I really wish the film, and this is just selfishly, I really wish the film would have focused more on that narrative. But then, and this is where my criticism comes in, we get this second twist, and to me, that second twist was a little bit less fleshed out. And really, when it comes to, I'm not a person that has to have everything explained to me, but to me, this second element of the twist that kind of ties into something we learned early in the film regarding Beth when she was younger, I wish they just would have stuck with that first twist. And again, when you see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about, but I obviously don't want to give it away here, but I just wish they would have maybe stuck with that narrative versus giving us this kind of secondary twist that didn't work for me personally. Something that was kind of small, because again, Rebecca Hall is the lead of this film. She carries this film from top to bottom. But the secondary characters, I'm a fan of the actors in those roles, but to me, they were just way too generic within the horror genre, right? We have her friend that's, a close friend. I think her name was Claire, that just plays a stereotypical friend and wants to be there for her. She has a neighbor who's a really great actor who just plays the concerning neighbor and just kind of pops in and out of the film. I just thought that the supporting cast was just too generic for my personal taste based on everything else that Rebecca Hall was given the role. I just wish that they would have gave her a little bit more in regards to bouncing off of something that was a little bit more original versus the generic, what we would expect to see in this type of genre. And then lastly, when it comes to my criticisms, I'm not going to lie, I've only seen it once, and I plan on revisiting the film, but based on my first time viewing, I wasn't a fan of the ending. Now, the ending goes back to my first criticism that ties into the second twist. This presence that's introduced into this film that happens to Beth pretty early on, I wish the film, since we went down a certain path, I wish it was just elaborated on a little bit more. And it's one of those endings that I'm not going to lie, it's an open to interpretation. And the way I took it, I have my thoughts on it without spoiling anything, but I wish the film would have gave us more of a follow-up to that ending. So I'm not going to lie, when it comes to that third act, which I thought was beautifully done, and you talk about creepy and suspenseful and thrilling, that third act is pretty intense, but I wish that once we got to the conclusion, it would have given us maybe one more scene to kind of really flesh out how they introduced this kind of secondary twist without the film. So honestly, the way I'm feeling right now, not the biggest fan of how they stuck the landing. I didn't think the payoff was as good as the setup for me personally. So before I give you all my overall thoughts and my score, if you haven't already, make sure to like, share, comment below, and of course subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Overall, The Night House is a film filled with tension and has incredible set designs that really creates a dark and twisted atmosphere. The use of the cameras, the illusion, the dreams, the character's journey throughout the film to discover this darkness from within her past as well as her husband was really well done. A very interesting setup with an interesting premise, but for me personally, taking away some of those secondary characters and focusing on the narrative once we get to that third act really didn't stick the landing for me personally, but I still can't neglect the performances, the cinematography, the use of the camera. That was really, really thrilling. So with all that being said, I'm going to give The Night House a solid 3.5 out of 5. And if you all have the opportunity to check it out when it comes to theaters this Friday, it's something I would recommend you all see with a crowd of people and seeing how you all take in this film. And again, once you've seen it, let's talk about pros and cons. Let's talk about metaphors and themes and the themes of grief and things of that nature, dreaming. But also, let me know in the comments, were you a fan of the ending? Were you not a fan of the ending? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Thank you all for sticking around to this point in the video. If you've done so, I appreciate every single one of you all. Again, just make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my other future content. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you on the next video.